Reaching over 58,000 students from more than 45 countries in 2020, we saw a tremendous and inspiring movement of young people investing their time and their talent. To fight back against climate change, a team from the University of Technology in Jamaica developed the Planted app, which provides a solution to help users grow their own food. And a team from the University of Sydney in Australia created Recharged, an electric vehicle sharing platform that connects household owners of charging stations to EV drivers wanting to recharge their cars. This year, the grand prize of the main Call for Code Global Challenge also went to students who met at Pace University in New York City. Representing their various countries, Brazil, India, Mongolia, and Taiwan, this distributed team of developers created an application to help the world's smallholder farmers cope with the environmental and business challenges that climate change represents every day. So although this year's global challenge and university have concluded, we are incredibly excited that this Spot Challenge is part of our year-round effort, our always-on Call for Code global initiative. Our focus is for all of you to create sustainable solutions that tackle climate change and that confront COVID-19 and other issues facing our world and facing our future. So thank you in advance, as always, for your time, your energy, and your talents. We look forward to seeing what your passion, your innovation, your collaboration, and more will do to help solve problems, to help bring us together, and ultimately to help move us forward toward a more equitable, a more sustainable, and a healthier future. So as global citizens and as citizens of your own communities, as leaders today and leaders tomorrow, there's no better time to join forces, to answer the call, and to build a better tomorrow. Hi, everyone. It's my honor to join you for the Call for Code University Spot Challenge, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, Students versus Climate Change. Now, more than ever, the scope and urgency we're encountering demands diverse perspectives and expertise, which is why we partnered with IBM for the second year to advance university efforts. This year, We wanted to do more to encourage students to get actively involved in Call for Code as we tackle the world's reaction to climate change, as well as to COVID-19. And so today, we've launched a dedicated university edition within Call for Code. Reaching over 58,000 students from more than 45 countries in 2020, we saw a tremendous and inspiring movement of young people investing their time and their talent. To fight back against climate change, a team from the University of Technology in Jamaica developed the Planted app, which provides a solution to help users grow their own food. And a team from the University of Sydney in Australia created Recharged, an electric vehicle sharing platform that connects household owners of charging stations to EV drivers wanting to recharge their cars. This year, the grand prize of the main Call for Code Global Challenge also went to students who met at Pace University in New York City. Representing their various countries, Brazil, India, Mongolia, and Taiwan, this distributed team of developers created an application to help the world's smallholder farmers cope with the environmental and business challenges that climate change represents every day. So although this year's Global Challenge and university have concluded, we are incredibly excited that this Spot Challenge is part of our year-round effort, our always-on Call for Code global initiative. Our focus is for all of you to create sustainable solutions that tackle climate change and that confront COVID-19 and other issues facing our world and facing our future. So thank you in advance, as always, for your time, your energy, and your talents. We look forward to seeing what your passion, your innovation, your collaboration, and more will do to help solve problems, to help bring us together, and ultimately to help move us forward toward a more equitable, a more sustainable, and a healthier future. So as global citizens, and as citizens of your own communities, as leaders today and leaders tomorrow, there's no better time to join forces, to answer the call, and to build a better tomorrow.
Thank you, Chelsea, for your inspiring remarks. Scientists across the world, including many in Edinburgh, where I am now, enabled us to identify the extent and the consequences of the climate problem. Now, our imperative is to help vulnerable regions around the world build back in a way that ensures recovery and resilience in the face of future natural disasters. The Clinton Foundation works with governments, with civil society and businesses to build on progress made, expand disaster preparedness, and foster long-term ecological and economic resilience. And the University of Edinburgh is glad to be part of this through CGIU, which is, as you may know, the Clinton Global Initiative University. As a long-standing member of CGIU's university network, the Edinburgh supports prospective and current students chosen to participate in the year-round CGIU program. Accepted students receive access to a virtual curriculum focused on social entrepreneurship, access to mentoring, and invitations to exclusive networking events, including an annual CGIU student conference. Throughout this challenge, you'll hear more about applying to CGIU, but I also encourage all interested students to visit cgiu.org for more information. In the meantime, best wishes from Edinburgh and good luck.
Thank you, Professor Robertson, and hello and welcome to our Call for Code University Spot Challenge for Europe, Middle East and Africa, Students versus Climate Change. My name is Dr. Petrina Prince, and I look after IBM's Global University Programs for Europe. And I'm really happy we're holding this event, as this is an area of personal interest to me. My undergraduate course was in environmental chemistry, and my final year project used peat cores to determine climate change and lead pollution patterns. So I have personally seen evidence that climate change is real, and hence this is of great interest to me to see how we can use technology to address climate change. I think after all, it's generally accepted by the end of the century, global temperatures could increase by 3 to 5 degrees Celsius. And why is this an issue? Well, as we see an increase in temperature, we'll also see a change in the number of our weather patterns. Did you know that 90% of our disasters are weather related? An increase in temperature can create an increase in floods, an increase in droughts, an increase in insect outbreaks, and also, as we've seen too many times in the last 12 months, an increase in really destructive wildfires. It's also scary to think that a quarter of the people in 2050 will be living in areas of chronic water shortage. That's really scary. And in those areas where water supplies is diminishing, they're also going to have a knock-on effect of their agricultural yields being lower than expected. So these are serious matters. And I also find it interesting to see that 75% of our carbon emissions already come from our cities. And as population growth is expected to expand, and that usually happens in urban areas, this is something that we need to address now. So I think it's very clear to say that every single one of us and every species on this planet will be affected by climate change. And it's problems like this that make IBM proud to be a founding partner of Call for Code. Call for Code is a multi-year challenge to developers around the world to come and use their skills to develop solutions for global issues. The main Call for Code event runs between February and the end of July, and that's called the Grand Event. If we hold events outside of that window, we call them spot events. So I'm delighted that this is the start of our spot event for Students versus Climate Change. And we're delighted to be partnering with the Clinton Global Initiative University and the University of Edinburgh. And I really do thank both of them from the deepest of my hearts for helping us getting this to happen. So our spot challenge is going to focus on 3 climate change areas. The first is water sustainability. After all, 2 billion people are now going to be at risk of reduced access to fresh water. Secondly, energy sustainability. We really must look at a way of reducing our energy emissions. And also for disaster resilience, it's scary to think that 1 million people have already lost their lives since the start of the century due to natural disasters. But we are in a good place. Technology can help to address these. And just to show this, I'm going to, let's take a look at previous Call for Code finalists. So this is actually a team that took part in the Grand Event in 2019 called Astra. And they are a team from UC Berkeley, a student team actually, made up of students from the UK, US, and France. So they came up with a solution to help with disaster resilience. So let's take a look at that.
Whenever a natural disaster occurs, there is like this huge pool of people calling the same emergency centers at the same moment. In California, for instance, we had earthquakes a lot, we have wildfires, and you only have a limited pool of people that can handle those calls, right? It is our attempt to actually tackle all the issue of being prepared to natural disasters.
The whole idea is that call centers will switch to a sort of automatic mode, and callers will be asked to summarize their call in briefly a minute. Our machine learning algorithms process the calls, and they extract particular keywords, right, and classes, and then assign a priority score to each call. IBM's Watson speech-to-text technology is built in the platform and analyzing calls in real time and filtering them.
When we look at how emergency calls are dealt with nowadays, it's a very old technology way. Asta is basically transforming how to deal with emergency calls, how to react to disasters to the 21st century.
Back in 2015, I was studying in Paris during the terrorist attacks, and then I was shocked by that. I think that our project could be like scalable for all of victims and all of emergency.
I hope that this project will have a real impact and that we can see it being employed and really saving human lives.
So hopefully that might have helped give you some ideas of what you might want to do in your solution. So how do we get started? So just as a reminder, this hackathon is open for students aged 18 and over from Europe, Middle East, and Africa. We're looking for teams to be made up of 3 to 5 students. Don't worry if you don't have a team. We have a Slack channel, which is hashtag EMEA-student-team building. If you go to that Slack channel, you'll see there's a lot of activity going on already. If you go there and put your interests and your skills, you'll be able to get yourself onto a team. And we'll be using this remote platform that you're currently on throughout the week for your team to work on developing their solutions. And remember, your solution should use at least one IBM software or IBM Cloud API. One of the cloud services that you may wish to use is Watson Assistant. You could use this to create a chatbot, or you could use Node-RED, which is a GUI interface to allow you to use IBM Cloud services without having to have a great depth of programming knowledge. And we actually do have recordings of workshops on how to use these, so these are available to you. We'd also like you to use the IBM Academic Initiative. Here you can get a cloud feature code, which gives you extra Cloud Foundry memory. And you can also download IBM software products for free, such as Watson Studio Desktop. And additionally, there are Call for Code starter kits. These are all documented for you at ibm.biz/EMEA hack. And we're also delighted to say we've got wonderful mentors waiting to help you. So as we know, you have lectures during the day. The mentors will be available to answer any questions that you have from 3 o'clock to 9:30 GMT time, Monday to Friday. And then on Saturday, they'll be available from 10:30 to 9:30, again, GMT. And then on Sunday, 10:30 to 3:30. And the way this will work is you will ask any questions on the Slack channel. The Slack channel is going to be hashtag EMEA-student-challenge. And then if they can answer it, wonderful. If they need to give you a little bit more help, they'll come into the remote platform and join your group. So please do take advantage of these fantastic IBM mentors. And once you've got your team and they have created their solution, how do you submit it? Well, we will take you through that during the week, but just to give you a heads up, in your team, we'll ask one of your team to sign the petition agreement form and then upload your code to the GitHub link that we'll give you. We'll actually ask you to create a short description. We're talking here like a paragraph, and then a longer description. This could be a page or a couple of pages in Word or a PowerPoint presentation. And then a 3-minute video. Now, please stick to the 3-minute videos. The judges won't watch after 3 minutes. So that's just a bit of a key and a tip for you there. And your submissions need to be submitted by 5 p.m. on the 15th of November. And again, that will be GMT time. Anything that we receive after that time, I'm afraid, will not be judged. So judging, how will your solutions be judged? Well, the judges will score in your submissions based on 4 questions. The first is completeness and transferability. You know, you've only got a week to do this solution. So how far did you manage to get in that week? And is it an area that will have an impact in the field? Secondly, effectiveness and efficiency. Does the solution address a high priority area? Does it achieve its goal effectively and efficiently? And can it be scaled? Design and usability. How good is the solution's design? What will the user experience be? And how quickly can it be put to use? And fourthly, creativity and innovation. How unique was the approach to solving a long-standing or previously intractable problem? So the judges will rate your submissions 1 to 5 for each of these 4 questions. They will also do a check to make sure that you did use one IBM technology. And the winners will be announced on this platform at 4:30 on the 20th of November. And the first prize is going to be $1,500, the second prize $1,000, and third prize $500. And I'm delighted to announce also that this will be for each of the categories, not just overall. So that's fantastic. And I'm looking forward to seeing the winners in each category. Okay, so just to give you some more thought here about what you might want to do, some more ideas. We actually had a student team win the grand event this year for the 2020 Call for Code. They were from Pace University. They were a very diverse team from Taiwan, Brazil, India, and Mongolia. And they created a wonderful solution for farmers to plant the right crops at the right time and the right climate. And they used a weather API to do this, to show what the daily and weekly forecasts were, and then they used IBM Watson Studio to, with a machine learning model, to predict the rain forecasts. So this was a great story, and we're now just going to have a look at that video.
The agricultural industry is one of the most vulnerable industries to climate change, as it directly depends on rainfall and temperature. Extreme weather is reducing crop yields and affecting food security. In the last years, developed countries with a good farm infrastructure had more than 17% yield decrease because of climate changes. However, the climate change impact is even more accentuated to small farmers in emerging countries, giving their small-scale burden of economic exclusion and lack of access to critical resources. Agroli aims to bring technology to the hands of small farmers, the ones that need it the most. We aim to fill in the information gap so that farmers can make more educated decisions, obtain the necessary financing, and improve the economic outcome. Our platform is already available for download in Google Store, free of charge and accessible to all. Agroli depends on 4 IBM technologies. First, we use the data provided by the IBM's The Weather Company to display hourly and weekly forecasts based on the location of the user. Secondly, we generate annual predictions with the help of the IBM Watson Studio. We collect the weather information from the last 5 years from NASA. We feed the information to the IBM Watson and run regression to generate predictions for annual forecasts. Third, we also use the IBM's Cloud Object Storage to store our risk assessment data. We combine the weather forecast from the IBM Watson Studio with the crop water requirements using the Food and Agriculture Organization for the United Nations standard, which is tailored for the location of each farmer, type of crop, and stage of the plantation. Finally, Agroli also provides a forum that allows farmers to network and exchange information and solutions. We allow users to upload images and text data. We currently work with IBM Watson Assistant to present to the user relevant results. Agroli is a team of 4, everyone with different nationality and backgrounds. We are currently based in New York City, and together we want to help small farmers in fighting climate change.
아직 이 법이 내밀었잖아. 자가가리고 urчлэн мэдэж ажиллаж зохицуулдаг болсон. Аграрийн артистийн миний мэргэжлийнхтэй нөхдүүдтэй холбож туршлага солилцох бүрэн байна гэж найдаж байна.
I hope you enjoyed the video, and congratulations again to Team Agroli. What a great solution, which has real potential to help these farmers. And hopefully it's also helped you think of an idea. If not, don't worry, our next section might spark a few ideas. And I say this as our next section will cover some of the key issues in climate change, as we have a panel of climate change experts who will share their thoughts on the situation. The discussion today will be led by Rashik Parmar, IBM Fellow and Vice President Technology for Europe, Middle East and Africa. So thanks for joining me, and I'll now hand over to Rashik.
Okay, so hello everybody. Delighted to have such a wonderful panel on this session today. The topic today is really about climate change and how technology makes a difference in climate change. I'm going to start with each of you introducing yourself. Maybe just have a 30-second, just briefly introduce yourself. Maybe we start with ladies first. So, Anika, do you want to start first?
Thank you, Rashid. Hi, everyone. My name is Adenike. I'm the founder of the Green Institute in Nigeria. The mission of the Green Institute is to build the next generation of sustainability leaders through education, advocacy, and innovation. So we've been able to raise a lot of green ambassadors in Nigeria that would go on to the world to provide innovative solutions to global challenges. I'm also a professor and assistant professor at the university. I studied environmental microbiology, so I'm an environmentalist at heart.
Awesome, very cool. Delighted to you join. Kyle, do you want to go next?
Absolutely. My name is Kyle Coolum. I'm a project manager with the Clinton Foundation's Climate Initiative. I've been at the foundation for about 4 years and been lucky enough to work in 2 different island regions around the world, helping to accelerate their energy transition from primarily fossil-based electricity generation to renewable energy. It's been a very exciting field of getting to work in just different environments and seeing, how these islands on the forefront of climate change can work through innovative ways and through different proven technologies in order to lower their CO2 emissions, but then be also more resilient to the effects of climate change as well.
I'm Michael, and I'm a climate activist based in Israel. I started my activism with organizing plastic pickups, and then I moved on to organize national climate strikes, then became an active part of the global movement. My work in Israel has really taught me about polarization of very non-partisan topics like climate activism. And it really has been, when I have engaged with Jordanians and Palestinians, it really has been thought-provoking on the very natures of how people become polarized and how to sort of diffuse that. So that has been my work, and one of the things that I think that can fix that is education, which is something that I'm specializing now in an organization that I work in.
Absolutely, and education has a huge impact to play. So, delighted to have such an eminent and a team that's really trying to create the value that we want. And as I think about how science can help us predict a whole bunch of things, we can start to predict shift in temperature, in weather patterns, food supply, and so on. And when I look at the work that you're doing, Adenike, around bringing, creating that Green Found Institute to start with, and then really driving the importance of education in the Nigerian community general and across Africa. Why is it so important that we integrate that kind of climate crisis into the curriculum, and how does education really help us to make the change we want to try to drive here?
Thank you very much, Rashid, for that question. First, let me start by saying that the climate crisis is a global phenomenon whose ripple effect goes beyond rising temperature. So more than ever, what we need is education, education, and education, because education is the root of every revolution. People need to be enlightened, they need to be equipped, and they need to be empowered in order for them to confront the challenges that confront them. So in Nigeria and other parts of Africa, our curriculum does not emphasize on sustainability solutions that combat the climate crisis. At the best, the science of climate is explained in isolation and hypothetically. So in 2014, while I was teaching some of my college students, I simply asked the question, that was 6 years back, what does it mean to go green? And to my surprisingly, about 98% of the students in my class said they've never really heard about going green before. And that kind of struck me because, in developing societies, people talk about the idea of going green, green initiatives. And my students in Nigeria, as of 6 years back, said they've never heard about it before. Now, the youth of Africa is about 20, youth accounts for 20% of the population of Africa, and they're supposed to be the leaders of sustainable development. So if they don't know anything about, climate change science or climate crisis, how are they going to join the conversation on climate change, let alone providing solutions to manage or to mitigate climate change? So that was when the idea came to me, and that was when I started the Green Institute. Although the Green Institute started as a club, but later we transitioned into the Green Institute. And so what we started doing is we started educating African youth, Nigerian youth specifically, on the idea of going green to combat climate change or to tackle some of the effects of climate change, and to advocate for in the inclusion of climate change science and sustainability education in the Nigerian education curriculum. So we believe that if we start teaching students, right, not just from university, but from elementary school or high school, then they will be at the forefront by the time they graduate, or even during while they're in school, to profile solutions to some of the climate challenges that we're facing as a community and ultimately globally. So that was
awesome.
That was why I started the
That's great, now, and it's great. It's great points. And as I think about what you just said, and Michael, as I turn to what you've been doing, your activism has taken you outside the school. Since the work with Greta Thunberg and the having weekly strikes at school on Fridays. What have you learned in that process, and how do you feel about lessons, and how can we really sort of have the education helping create the right kind of climate for us going forward?
Right. So the lessons I learned outside the classroom. Now, I think education is great and public education is great and important, but it does feel, it is very limiting. In the past 3 years, I've learned so much about real life politics, the responsibility of citizens, and the power it can have on multiple different issues, such as the climate crisis. Not only the climate crisis, we're talking also about human rights here. And that's something that just cannot be really taught in classrooms, that has to be experienced. And I would really recommend every school to take, expose young people and students to not necessarily activism, but civil problems in the field, because that really puts your life and the future into perspective. And I really also believe that encourages people, young people, to vote. And that's something that in activism is extremely important, because that's how you make new decisions. You can fund climate solutions. That's how you drive governments to make better decisions, which they haven't made in the past about the climate crisis. So I think there is an immense amount of stuff to be learned outside the classroom that can be implemented to a classroom environment if people would approach these civil issues in a more open-minded way, and also promote their students to be think a little bit more critically.
Yeah, and I think your points on helping the young people understand the impact here, and also helping them think critically is really, really important. And when I turn to Kyle, to your work in the Climate Institute, you've been focusing really on transitioning from fossil fuels in some of the islands and so on, right? And there's been a lot of experience there. And what have you learned through that process? What's the real value of renewables? What's the kind of impact you've been having there?
It's been, working in islands has been really interesting, where, being on the forefront of climate change, they've really seen, what the devastating impacts could be. Recently, I spent a lot of time working in Dominica after Hurricane Maria. And the issue of climate change it's not really an issue. It's not up for debate. These islands have seen it. I'll never forget when we went there, and I think February afterwards, and the palm trees looked like they were blowing in the wind, but that was just the after effects of, the winds from the hurricane. Dominica is covered in beautiful rainforest, and the rainforest wasn't there. The jungle was quiet, which was, disconcerting. But then, once we really just talking to people and figuring out what we can do, what the impact we could make, renewable energy was seen as one of the best ways to prepare them for the future, where, for example, they're looking at geothermal energy to power, the entire island, as well as looking at potentially solar in local communities that may be cut off by the hurricane or high winds, or even if it's not a hurricane, just a windy day, a branch can take out a power line and that section of the island could lose power. And one of the things that I've greatly enjoyed is looking at the resiliency side at the community level. And so what we did was use GIS mapping, talking to local communities to figure out what are the points of vulnerability there, and then help determine how can they improve the resiliency. And some of the fixes are quite simple, as such as, under a lot of bridges, there's PVC piping that has all the telecoms and power lines. So even though you may underground power lines and spend, thousands, if not millions of dollars, the bridges can be a small point of weakness, and all you have to do is, fix that PVC piping and look at other ways to have the power lines, traverse that section so that community doesn't have to worry. Also, there's things such as gas pumps, which was something I learned about, where if a community loses power, much as I don't like fossil fuels, diesel generators work. But an issue with diesel is that you can run out of fuel. Well, gas stations in a lot of islands, they don't need power to run the gas pumps. Like here in the States, if a community loses power, you can't get gas to fill up your car. But in certain islands, you can. And that gives communities another resource to keep going, even if renewables aren't quite there yet. And so there's been a lot of options we've seen and really being able to put our heads together. But I think, talking with people in these communities and learning about not only the storms that are happening now, but what are some of the things that have happened historically has been really rewarding and allowed us to think outside of the box and come up with truly innovative solutions that people understand and want in their communities. And it's not some, foreign thing coming in there and saying, you need to do this, but they can really take ownership over that process. One of the things I always joke about is, my job, hopefully, I lose my job in certain islands where that they're able to take ownership of these processes, and then I can move on to the next. So I think it's been really exciting just to see them, a lot of the momentum and political will really beginning to change.
Yeah, that's really cool. And what you're discussing there really takes us on to the topic I wanted to go to the next, which is how do we identify and overcome some of the barriers? So climate change is a universal problem. I mean, something that we've got to really solve. What are you seeing as the specific issues in your communities, and what kind of unique challenges do you think we face, and how can we learn from some of the things that you're doing here? Mm-hmm. Yeah, open it up to anybody who wants to go first.
All right, so climate crisis in my community, I come from a rural community called Mundo community, and it throws a spotlight on poverty and vulnerability. So there's been a lot of seasonal changes as a result of climate change, and this has had adverse effects on agriculture. So now when farmers fail to reap like a bountiful harvest, it affects their livelihood and it affects their economic output. So the economic output is threatened. So, for instance, the impact of climate crisis includes flooding, especially in coastal areas, and particularly women and young children, are exposed and prone to infectious diseases. And so in my community, like in developed societies or like Europe and America, most of the climate activities, they talk about climate justice. But if you want to look at Nigeria as a case study, most people don't have basic physiological needs. So you're talking about, you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, most people are still like at the bottom of the pyramid. They don't have access to clean water. They don't have access to, they don't have basic security, basic food, shelter. So it's always hard for them to want to become climate activists because there's so much stuff like for survival that they're trying to concentrate on. And also in a place like Nigeria, I don't know if you guys followed the End SARS movement that trended online about police brutality in Nigeria, about police killing the citizens. And a lot of people died just by protesting peacefully on social issues. So it's always hard for people to come out to talk about any kind of issues, even environmental issues created, because the government has instilled fear in people. Just recently in South Africa, there is a anti-mining coal activist. Her name is Fikile. She was killed, she was murdered just because she was raising awareness about the expansion of the largest coal mining industry in South Africa. And she's a grandmother, and she was killed in her home, and she had like a 7-year-old grandson. So that has instilled fear a lot of people to come out to say, you want to come out to talk about how climate change is affecting us. And even when you come back to Nigeria, you talk about the case of an environmental activist, Ken Saro-Wiwa, his work was based on the oil exploration of some multinational companies. and how the oil is affecting the people in the environment. I mean, it's causing water pollution and also obliterating the livelihoods of people in coastal communities, because the primary occupation is fishing. And there's been a lot of, when the wastewater from the oil exploration production is released into the water bodies, most of these fishes die, the water become contaminated. So this activist, Ken Saro-Wiwa, came out and said, the government has to compensate the citizens, and they have to stop or at least have regulations and policies against this oil exploration. And it was executed. So it's really hard. And that's why for us, we're going through the education, trying to educate young people while they're still in school, so that, but to go outside and talk about, like climate strikes could get you killed in a country like Nigeria. So it's really hard.
Michael, turning to you. So when we think about what Adenika's been saying there, it's great seeing the activism in young people, but how do we get the older people and the adults to really recognize this and play their part in this journey here as well?
Rashik, at the risk of sounding a little bit simplistic, the answer is very simple. The answer is simply adults need to listen. When I was a kid, one of my favorite stories as a child was a story by Michael Ende called Momo. It was a little girl whose superpower was listening. As long as adults listen to the scientists and to literally the lines that the youth are saying, we should be all right. What makes climate movement successful and what makes any movement successful, is upholding science and objectivity and citing everything that they do. Movements are not the ones who are creating policy, we're the ones who are creating the room for discussion. And as long as that discussion remains scientific, the discussion is going to go to the right direction eventually. So what adults need to do is to listen and really think, maybe they have a point, maybe these youngsters have a point. And actually what the climate movements are doing, they're not inventing facts, they're not doing research, they're just repeating words that already scientists are saying. So very simply, it's just listen.
It's great you say listening, because one of my favorite pieces of work the BBC's been doing is called deep listening. And it's actually easy to say deep listening. It's actually very hard to do. So I'm delighted you're bringing that out, because it's a big topic. And Kyle, maybe I'll turn to you here, get your view on, as part of the changes that you've seen, how do we get the adults to really take the responsibility and do what we need to do in the right way? Listening is absolutely a key thing, but what else can we do?
I think one of the ways that, to really perk up officials' ears and people at utilities is one of speaking about climate change in ways that are a bit more traditional, such as, my background is in public policy, disaster resilience, but really disaster resilience from a homeland security perspective. So looking at climate change in a way that officials are more used to, and also putting a bit more weight on it, where it's less so sometimes about GHG emissions and more so looking at how do we improve healthcare, or you make healthcare reliable, such as if the grid is unstable. And also, one of my deep passions is sports. I love soccer, and sporting is a really great way to make people pay attention about climate change, because everyone, whether it's soccer internationally, football here in the US, or American football here in the US, is a great way to get people's attention. And there's a project I'm working on right now where there's a few soccer fields near an oil refinery. And so we're looking at putting solar PV on top of the sporting facilities to help lower the cost of energy, but then also help use some of that savings to reinvest in the sporting facilities. And so it's one way of really trying to give back to these communities who have been unjustly impacted by fossil fuels, but also, the fact that many of the people in the government and in the utilities live near or in these communities, they get excited. These are, their kids have played on these fields, they go out and enjoy them, they have teams. And so by really kind of focusing on some of the issues that unite us, it's sort of my trick to getting people to eat their broccoli is sporting is my cheese. You put it on top, it looks delicious and exciting, but then you get people really interested and you build that traction. And, people want to see their neighbors happy, see these communities happy. And then with the renewable energy aspect, you not only are decreasing costs, but then you can have the children and adults looking at and seeing the benefits of this is what renewable energy can do to you. And that helps drive a lot of the conversation at the higher level and gets people to listen.
Awesome. And I want to try and sort of wrap up with some very short but really valuable questions. And I want to turn to you, Michael, first with, you've organized protests where you've very different views in the same space. You've had Palestinians and Jews in the space, and you talked about listening before. How do you get them to stay engaged on this topic and sustain the engagement with both very different views there?
Right. So there's definitely polarization between these demographics. The Middle East is not the most stable of regions, and I can relate to what the other panelists said here about people not necessarily wanting to protest because there's a bigger threat out there, which is something that in the Middle East is very prevalent. The key here is finding something in common with the person from the other side of the border. And in this case, it's climate action and the acting on the climate crisis. Working together, it's no secret, humans are social people, and working together brings people together. They can see that, hey, maybe this person is not that bad, which is certainly the case in my case. And then I'd go back to education, and I would highlight that when we're talking about education, we need to be a little bit more specific, because a lot of the polarization comes from people preaching other people on what they should do and not just telling them and giving them the freedom to decide for themselves, and also not showing some problems with education is that they don't show the solutions. So that may come to the person who has not heard of this ever before a little bit condescending. So the important education to tackle polarization is in education that focuses on solutions and is easily understandable. So when we're talking about climate education, we should educate people about solar energy, about problems with solar energy in terms of storage. We should educate people about how to tackle soil degradation, how to have more efficient farming. We have a lot of problems in the agriculture industry that could be solved very easily. For example, we could replace the cow feed with seaweed, which then is much more easier to digest for the cows, and hence it would potentially even drop the emissions from the cow birds by 50%, which is extremely big. So when we're talking about climate education, we should include solutions there, because that concretely shows people, maybe I can do something, because climate change is such a broad aspect. It's really overwhelming to a lot of people, including myself when I first became involved. So showing that there is concrete things that we can do as a society can really help with polarization.
So you're saying really help drive and make clear, tangible, actionable things that people can really do. So Kyle, when you think about this and building on what Michael was saying, the Clinton Institute really looks at big global programs, but acting locally. So how do you think global but act local?
You have to go there. And I think this is, something I always suggest of no matter where, if you're going to try and do something in a place, you put on your boots, you get on a plane, and you go to these communities. I was really fortunate to work with the government of Belize and the utility there, and we won a grant to electrify 3 rural villages in the far southwest of Belize. And so I flew to Belize. We had about a 3-hour drive. These communities have had no power. And it was really interesting because these communities have seen, these large transmission lines go by them. And they, the question they had is, there's the power. Why can't we get this here? And, skipping a bunch of engineering, they really wanted this. And so it was great to go sit there, meet with the village councils. And I was asked some of the toughest questions of my life in those councils of, why do we want to do this? If we're putting, if these systems are going to cost millions of dollars, why? Or millions of dollars. How does that, impact our community positively? Shouldn't this money be going towards education or improving roads or housing? And, by sitting there listening and, really thinking, it was, we showed that, this way, when your kids come home from school, they don't have to rush home before it gets dark and have to study by candlelight. It will make businesses be able to have refrigerated goods, so it'll increase tourism. And it was just, for me, that was really the way of just going there. And, at one point we were standing about knee deep in a field in a bit of a swampy area with the Minister of Energy, looking at different sites where we could put the solar panels. And, I'd say that's the best way, is just getting your hands dirty, so going there and learning.
Yeah, you got to go there and experience it. Right, we're going to close off with a really simple question, and I'd like you each to have a really short, 5-word maximum answer, okay? So the question is, if you think 10 years from now, you've had huge impact, what is the one measure that you'd use to be able to see that what you've been doing has made a difference? So we go, Adenika, you go first.
Thanks, Rashid. 5 years from now. 10 years from now.
10 years from now.
10 years from now?
Yep.
Okay, so I would like you to imagine a world where we end poverty, reduce inequality, and tackle climate change. Of course, these are noble intentions conveyed by mere words. And we know that words are bridges between intentions and actions. So the success of our collective efforts 10 years from now will be measured when we match our words with actions.
So
thank you.
Michael, yourself, 10 years from now, few words, what are you going to measure? How do you prove you've made impact here?
I definitely agree with Adenika there. I think SDGs are a very powerful tool to measure if we've succeeded to complete the SDGs. And on top of that, I would say that another measure would be if I would go ask a student in, say, Rwanda about climate change and what should be done, that they would have the same answer as a student who studies in London. That would be a very big measure if we've succeeded.
Great. Kyle?
I think I very much agree with the SDGs, but also looking at people's savings. Energy prices in the Caribbean are about 3 to 4 times as much as in Europe or the US, and it places an undue burden. And one of the best ways we can combat climate change is giving people the resources to help, further educate the children, help putting money back in the families. And I really think of, renewable energy as a way to decrease costs.
It's wonderful. I want to say thank you. It gives me tremendous confidence that people like you are out there doing this wonderful. I'm sure we can create the kind of world that we want to be part of, and we can start to tackle climate change. And we have more people like you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rashik.
Thank you, Rashik and panelists, for that engaging discussion and putting us into context of the challenge that we are facing right now. My name is John Matogo. I'm Global University Programs Leader for Africa. For the students who are joining, if you're based in any of the countries in Africa, in North, West, Central, or East Africa, I'm your primary liaison with your university and IBM. First of all, let me congratulate all of you for stepping up and taking up that challenge. As you heard in the previous discussion, this is a really important issue that we are facing. And it's really good to see that a number of you have really taken up the challenge and want to do something about it. What I want to do is to actually take you through the academic initiative. IBM Academic Initiative is a resource where you can access a number of other resources that you can use during this challenge that will help you in developing your solutions. So what I'll show you in this presentation is walk you through how to register to the academic initiative and how you can go ahead and download various tools and resources from IBM that will help you build your solution. So the academic initiative from IBM is a self-service resource where you can go in there, sign up with your university email ID and download useful technologies from IBM that will help you in developing your solution. It's a pretty simple process. All you need to do is go to the website that you see on the screen down there, ibm.com/academic. Sign up using your university email address, and then when you get in there, you can pick and choose, like an online shopping site, various technologies from IBM that you can use for your solution. This could be IBM Cloud that I really encourage you to go ahead and use for your solution, and various other commercial grade software that you can use in developing your solution. So like I said, it's pretty simple. What I want to do is to walk you through the process of signing up for the academic initiative, and then you can use all this software for your solution. So let me walk you through the registration process of the academic initiative, and let's do this together. So step number one is fairly simple. Open up your web browser and type in the address ibm.com/academic. What will happen is that you'll have a page similar to the one that you see on the screen now. And in the middle there's a button that says register now. You click on that, and that will take you straight to the registration page. Enter your university email ID. So this will look something similar to this here. Obviously, it might change depending on the country that you're from. So you'd have your typical username, and then your university domain would be next there. So enter that in there, then click on submit. If this is a qualified university email address, you'll have no problem going in. Remember, this will not work if you're using Yahoo or Gmail account, because that is not a university email ID. The next step would be to open up then this window where you'd select your status. So if you're a faculty member or a student, so in our case, we're entering this challenge as students. So check the student option, select the degree that you currently hold. If you're a graduate student, so you possibly have a diploma or a bachelor's degree, so select the one that you have there. If you are a bachelor's student and do not have a previous degree, so set it to none, and indicate now in the sort degree, the degree that you're currently working towards. So if you're a graduate student, maybe you're working to a master's or a PhD. If you're a bachelor's student, so indicate the bachelor's degree you're working towards. And then indicate the expected date of graduation. In the department, choose an option that comes close to the name of the department or faculty that you fall under. And then for the next option, which says enroll me to an IBM badge program, I would recommend you click on yes. This is a great program where you can actually showcase your skills on different technologies, and this will be useful not only for this, but also in other activities later. The next step is to accept the IBM Academic Initiative Terms of Service. Basically, this is an agreement where you confirm that you will not use the resource that you receive from the Academic Initiative Program for anything other than academic purposes or for the Call for Code challenge. So you'll notice that it's not possible to click on the checkbox here. So you need to click on the text there, and then this will become activated. So you click on that text, a window will pop up asking to accept the terms. You can read it if you wish, but it's pretty standard stuff. When you click on accept that, then you'll notice that the checkbox becomes activated. Same thing for the privacy agreement. Click on the bold text. A window will pop up. You can read through the stuff if you wish, but click on accept, and then the checkbox will be activated. And then you can click on register. Fairly simple. The next step is if you already have an IBM ID, then you just log in with that IBM ID. If you've registered for another service from IBM using your email address, and you log in and you will have access to the academic initiative. If you have not created an IBM ID from a previous activity, you will be led to a new page which will ask you to register for an IBM ID. It's a pretty simple process. So the same email address, enter that email, put in your name and create your own password. It will send an email to your email address with a code. Enter that, and you're done. And you'll be ready to access the IBM Academic Initiative. When you get in there, there's loads of stuff that you can download, be it software, course material, and for this purpose of the Call for Code challenge, I'd encourage you, cloud access. IBM Cloud has a lot of great resources that you can use for your exercise. So let me just repeat that fairly quickly. So very simple process. Step number one, go to the website, ibm.com/academic, click on the register button, enter your university email ID. Remember, it's very important that you use your university email address. Otherwise, you will not be able to proceed beyond this step. Once you enter your university email ID, fill in the details indicating that you're a student in your university, put in the required information, fairly straightforward. Agree to the terms of service of the academic initiative and the privacy statement. Click on register. And if you have an IBM ID with that same email address, you're basically done. If not, it'll ask you to create a simple IBM ID, which is just putting in your email address. It'll send an email to your email account with a code, confirm that, and you're done, and you're in. Here, I give you a snapshot of just a few of the resources that are available to you through the academic initiative. If your solution is making use of data science analytics, you've got access to IBM Watson Studio, SPSS Modeler, Cognos Analytics, iLog Cplex, and tons of other resources for analytics that you could use for your solution. You've got databases that you can have access to. You've got security solutions. If your solution is using mobile or IoT, again, you have that as well. So all this is available to you and much more. If you're developing solutions using blockchain, all that is available under the academic initiative. So go ahead, sign up now, and begin using the academic initiative resources to build your solution. As I said, you have all signed up, and I commend you for taking up the challenge. As you heard, this is a big problem that we are facing globally. So yours might be the solution that we need to solve the challenges that we're facing. Thank you. I wish you all the best as you work on your solutions for this challenge. And I am available and others from IBM to support you as you access the software from Academic Initiative. Petrina, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, John. That's wonderful. Okay, so I think we're almost ready to start. You're all on the remote platform. You know how to get a team. If you're not in a team, go to the Slack channel. You'll find a team there, no trouble whatsoever. We'll help if there's any issues. You know that you need to use one IBM technology. So that could be on IBM Cloud or using our software and our feature codes from the IBM Academic Initiative. And there's instructions on where to find and how to use them. You know that the submissions will walk you through the submission process during this week, but you'll be essentially doing a short description, a long description, uploading your code to GitHub, and then the important thing is your 3-minute video, keeping it to 3 minutes. And then our judges, they will score you based on 4 questions rated 1 to 5. And then we'll reconvene here next Friday, the 20th of November at 4:30 GMT time, and we'll announce the winners. There'll be winners in each categories, with first prize being $1,500, second prize being $1,000, and third prize being $500. So all the best to you all. Good luck. Really excited to see what you're going to come up with. Let the hacking begin.